Yo, as we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. All right. It sounded like I had more to say, but whatever, man. It's been an interesting day. This is gonna be an interesting episode, as I can tell. But hey, y'all, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you're looking at this on YouTube, share it. If you're on the gram, share it, like it. If you're listening, which most of us are probably listening via Apple, Spotify. Yeah, man, just tune in, share it if you enjoyed the conversation. So today's episode is literally titled as Importance of Context. Okay. Context. I don't know what other way to really go about this, but when you think of context, context provides the necessary background information to understand the nuances of a situation. Without context, comma, information may be misinterpreted or misunderstood. So with me saying that, how many times have you ran into situations where you'd be talking about something or something's going on and somebody will totally take whatever you're doing or saying completely out of context? Didn't bother to assess the situation for what it was or anything. They just acted. So you reacted. They got offended and then you got more offended. And then, it just keeps going on. This is kind of how you see those interesting fights that you see on World Star. That's how they start. That's how all these interactions happen whenever you're in social events outside. I don't know, maybe Black Friday, for an example. I don't know. Wherever you may be, it's very easy for people to take whatever you're doing out of context without them actually asking for clarity. And that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people have missing in this world is asking for clarity or some type of level of understanding. Everyone's entitled today or these days. So, with that being said, when you think of cultural context, man, and you think of like how some things are suitable to you, but not in other cultures, it's real interesting to me just because my background and my upbringing, man, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, literally. Um, I can honestly say, man, I've been in, for an example, like say on my block, right? I grew up with some kids that didn't necessarily have the same cultural beliefs or they lived completely different than we did. But at the same time, we hung out, right? Like I'll go over their house, you know what I'm saying? Like their house isn't as nearly as tidy as mine is. Like if I looked at my mom saw their house and how they were living in their conditions, she would probably call the police. Like, like what's going on? Like this looks like a disaster. But when they come over to my house, they're like, dang, like, does anyone live here? Like, like everything's super tidy. Um, you know, and I've learned to be open minded in a sense, I think, based off of just some of those situations there. Like I'm saying, like those kids I grew up with across the street, they ran outside the house barefooted. Me, if I got caught running outside barefooted, that's my ass. Literally. Like I would probably I would get destroyed by my parents. So when I think about stuff like that, man, it's real interesting. Like you don't really realize or you often question yourself like, what does this all mean? Like, why is he talking like this? Why is this relevant? And I think it's very relevant because it's showing in today's world, whether you realize it or not, how many people aren't exposed to things like that. It's showing how many people out here really lack clarity. They really lack um or they didn't have the kind of exposure I had where you learn to accept those differences about what other people are doing. Like I could hang
Yeah.
out with them still and they can come in my house, no problems. But hey, if you want to come in my house, just know that your feet got to be clean and you can come in. Like, you know what I'm saying? No dirt on your feet or nothing. Or, I come over there, there's a certain standard there. Like, hey, if I come over there, make sure that you speak up, you know? I mean, it's common courtesy when you walk into someone's house, like, hey, how you doing? Rather than you waiting for them to say something, you should be saying something because you're in the comfort of their own home. That's what they taught. So, it's a fair trade, man. Honestly. Um, I know I started the conversation off kind of different, but I guess Marcus, to kind of keep this conversation going, man. This is hilarious, by the way. But to kind of keep this conversation going, man, have you ever ran into situations where you could say were actual building blocks for you to actually understand or be more receptive to things that are totally different than your standard of living?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because that didn't happen. That didn't happen to me for college. I gotta give Joe some credit here because for me, like I've known Joe for 15 years now, but it's a situation where certain people like teach you certain lessons. And like I met Joe 15 years ago. Till I probably met Joe, I really didn't understand how to like like really understand how to navigate around people that are different, and Joe probably never heard me say this. It's probably the first time I'm saying this.
I
But
have not.
but but it's what he's trying to convey here. I think it's really important to let him get his points off this episode. Is that there's things that you just don't know and you don't understand. The thing is that you don't understand, you don't know. And that's what's the most dangerous thing is that there's these other worlds that people live in outside of our world because the world we see, that's just us. Like that's our experience, that's our background, that's like our family, our friends that we come up with, like what we're exposed to. That's really all we know. So we are exposed to different people and like giving the credit to Joe for just understanding that like listen, I'm trying to be honest here, but I would be around Joe when we were a lot younger, like what, 15 years ago. And I'll be like, I'm out here looking around like, bro, like I'm like, what's going on, man? And he like, yeah, that's just how it is. He's like, that's just how they like, he's like, that's just how like things work here. That he just would like have an understanding of like people understanding that it's different and understanding that he would actually understand that like I didn't understand. And then because he was so cool about it, I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, this is just how it is. But I think we come across things and that the reason I say that is that like Joe taught me that life lesson. Like nobody else taught me that life lesson because sometimes people can tell you stuff and they can be like, oh, like, yeah, these people like certain people do certain things, right? But it doesn't become real until you experience it. And for me, it was like I'll be hanging out with Joe. I see some crazy stuff and Joe be like, yeah, that's normal, man. Just, whatever, man. People, Joe be like, people be people, that's like, that's kind of how it was. And it's like, oh, like this is like the things that are irregular are actually normal. Like it's normal to not understand that someone will operate in a way that's different from and that was one of the things that I just wanted to tell Joe that that's like one of the things that he taught me is to kind of really like understand that. And I think that a lot of people might be lost on that because no one's actually explained that to you because you haven't had the exposure. And it's also an exposure piece because we all kind of we live in our own bubbles too. And like that's part of it too, is that like you don't understand what you don't understand. And that's really the hard part when things just don't make sense, is that we try to rationalize things like very quickly so it makes sense to us. But sometimes the scope in which we see things isn't wide enough to actually understand what's actually going on and why things sometimes don't make sense to us. But Joe, again, you have any questions? I don't know if I answered the questions appropriately. Um,
You're
but
doing great.
I just wanted to share that share that piece of information.
Nah, you're doing great, man. So just to piggyback off that, man, what we call that is cultural sensitivity. That's the correct term for it. I didn't even know I was doing this. This is just something I developed ever since I was probably about, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, maybe even younger than that. Um, I know that that takes some special skill set, and you have to be placed under certain circumstances to really develop that skill set to where you may do it in your sleep like me, where I'm consciously aware of how certain things are. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but for example, if you look at me, I'm considered a black male, right? And consider, me being in a room full of people that are not black. So whatever, what they could be, whatever else, they're just not black. So what I'm saying is, I have been in situations where I can learn how to navigate outside of my own understanding and level of understanding. And I'm coming from where I'm coming from, say someone that there's a second person that is black in that room full of people, right? I'm on the level of understanding what they're going through, how they're processing things, and I'm able to communicate that to them in a better light just because I'm going through it and I've been through it than anybody else could in that room. So I could tell them or teach them how to navigate through that. I think that's what's really missing in the world, and that's called adaptability. Um, there's no other way around it. That's probably the most bold term to go with that. And with adaptability, man, and the importance of context, it really provides the information needed to adapt to different situations. Once you have that information, you can take off and fly anywhere. And my thing is this: I'm not mentioning that you have any biases, which you probably do. Most people have cultural biases. That's something you have to deal on your own. I can just show you how to get there, but that stuff, you're on your own with that. That's something you have to internalize yourself. I can't help you under any circumstance with that. That's a personal issue. But what I'm saying is, there needs to be more people that are willing to train, especially the youth, how to navigate in these capacities without purposely pissing people off, and also understanding what you're doing at all times. And unfortunately, it's really disheartening for me to where I would see this happen damn near on a daily basis every time I step outside. I'd be like, why are you treating this person this certain type of way? Or why is this person treating you this certain type of way? You want to know why? It's because nobody's giving you no context or cultural context to let you know what's going on. Like, perfect example. Say I walk into I walk into a store or whatever, right? And I meet my buddy from school, right? Say that he is obviously not black. So he walks up to me and he says, "What's up, Joe?" And then he rubs me on my head or whatever, and I just got a fresh haircut. That's a lack of cultural sensitivity right there. Because I'm a flip out because you messed up my nice new haircut. You may not see no difference because you're like, "Oh, this is short hair." Like, I didn't mess up anything. But from my cultural standpoint, you messed up my waves, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you be ready to scrap about that, you know? So that's no different than you hanging out with your buddy that's different than you, and say you guys are going fishing. Say you're a city boy. Say that they're a outdoorsman, or that they like to do outdoors type of stuff. So you guys are fishing. Say that you don't like touching worms and you kick over the bucket of worms. You don't think he's gonna be pissed about that? You know what I'm saying? Just because that's a standard of living for him, to where he thinks that those worms are like, that's your goal. That's your bread and butter, to catch a worm. Whether you think you might try to find an alternative, or maybe you just turn off the fact that, hey, I don't want nothing to do with no slimy worms or anything like that, or no fish. But the point I'm trying to make here is, like, everyone has their own pressure points, and that's fine. But the whole point is for you to learn and have some kind of culture sensitivity so you don't overstep certain boundaries. And I feel like that's what we're lacking in today's world. Would you agree or disagree?
I think this falls into another category of, like, you have your emotional intelligence. It's also like a sub. a subcategory of like cultural intelligence, right? And just
Yeah.
understanding that everybody's a little bit different, and you kind of have to understand that. And I think it's okay to just seek like clarification, just to be sure. Cause yeah, like what, like, listen, I've had somebody like touch my hair after I got a haircut. It's like, do you know the work that goes into my hair actually looking like this? So like, don't do that, but it's like, you didn't know, right?
Right.
Because that person, maybe their hair, they can just touch it and then they'll just bounce back to how it was naturally. Right. But then it's wave grease, all kinds of stuff, do rag, all kinds of stuff. And we look, a lot of work goes into this. You got to get whatever kind of brush, the texture of your brush is going to be different. Might have a soft bristle, a hard bristle, might be using like some olive oil, some other stuff. Like
Brush your
for
hair
some
in
of you
30
listening to this,
minutes, 30
yeah,
minutes, an hour.
like, you don't know. Listen, I had my boy, like one of my friends in high school, he had a fro. He's getting braids and then he cut his hair off. And then I saw him the next day and he was like, bro, I've been brushing my hair all night. This was at 360s in the morning. He cut his hair. But it's like, bro, there's a lot of work in this dude having like getting waves back in his hair. But you wouldn't understand that. And don't, and this is somebody I know that if you would have rubbed his hair, he'd probably knock you out. But like, it's just serious. Like just said, those fighting. Like that's a reason for altercation right there. But it's one of those things where I think that it's like, if you don't understand, then it's okay to tread cautiously. And it's also okay to, I think, communicate that you don't want to. And this is why I say it's kind of like a branch off of emotional intelligence, is just understanding that there's a potential to offend just because you just don't understand how someone will react to something that you may perceive as like a normal thing to do. And I think that it's okay because it's like I think we live in a world where there's just a mix of people from a lot of different cultures. And the way the world kind of is set up now is that like you could be in a room full of people, you can be in a room for 20 people, and all 20 of those people are from different regions, culturally, and this can be different things that can offend different people, and there can be different things that are acceptable to those people. And it's just, it's okay to understand what you don't understand. I think you can kind of feel like you're tiptoeing around, like trying to figure out ways to not offend. Because I know it's one thing where culturally, like it's normal to like put your money down on the counter. Like I've had people put money down on the counter, like when I was a cashier and doing that like type of work. And that was like a cultural thing to put the money down on the counter. Now me being an American, I'm like, oh bro, this you disrespect. I was like, this is disrespectful. I'm gonna throw this change right back at you. Right. But understand it. But if you don't
Yep.
understand why they're doing it, like they're doing it out of respect for their culture. So for me, I'm getting offended. This person is just acting in line with their culture and they don't like, I don't understand and they don't understand either. So it actually really requires one of the two of you like kind of need to understand that maybe it's not what it is, because a lot of like you can get into a lot of altercations and it's just a miscommunication. Like for no reason too. And
Most
that's how
times.
easy it is. But like I say, it's really just like cultural intelligence, but more so just a branch of emotional intelligence. And I think it's just like stopping to understand. Now, some people they just disrespectful. Like they just disrespectful, bro. They don't know them. So I'm not giving these people passes because they just are what they are. But at the same time, not everyone has ill intent. It is just a result of ignorance too. So I mean that's what we try to communicate. But that's kind of it. That's kind of it there, Joe. I hope whatever you asked me that I don't remember, man. I hope I answered it.
No, that's fair. This is not an easy topic to speak on. So I think the last thing I want to mention is to put things into reference more so for people that are just here to really get some extreme value out of this. That would more so be if you're thinking of it from a business context. Say that you want to be super successful, right? Say that you want to gain as much capital as you can before it's over, said and done with. What is it going to take for that to happen? I know. Do you know? Well, I'll answer for you because by the time you reply, I won't be listening. So that would be Okay, let me focus. So that would be a form of business and strategy. So basically in the business world, if you understand the market, and you understand your customers' behaviors, and the industry trends, this is all crucial to business. So if you want to make as much as you possibly can in whatever market you're in, you have to study that. You have to study those trends. You got to understand your customers' behaviors. 9 times out of 10, whatever business you open up or whatever invention you made, most likely those people that are going to be receptive to your product are not going to be people that look like you. Are you prepared for that? And if you're prepared for that, that's good. If you're not, you better get some understanding quick because because contextual awareness is key for developing effective business strategies. I can't say that more. Contextual awareness is key for developing effective business strategies. If you don't understand it, I hope you do some more research on that because that's going to be very important. If you're going to do any kind of point of sale, or if you're a person in sales or a person that maybe not deal with sales directly, but you're in a business or a level of consulting, you have to have that level of understanding to be dominant in your role. If you don't understand that, you're not going to be successful. How many people become millionaires based off the community that they were born and raised in? It ain't many, especially if you're a minority. You didn't cut your chances by a lot. So what I'm saying is you're going to have to be on have a more global outlook or global perspective in order for you to be as successful as you possibly can be. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Like I said before, the importance of context. What we're really saying here as far as the importance of context is make sure that you not only read between the lines, but you also study whatever you involve yourself into. Instead of just saying ignorant stuff just because it may sound funny or cool to you based off of where you come from or your place of origin, make sure you also do some background research as far as why this is happening. Why is this the way it is? It may sound boring. It may not make sense now, but if you try to make some real dollars and some real figures out here, best believe you're going to have to understand that because the more you understand that, that's how you'll be able to understand what your customer will need for you to be successful in business.
Well, thanks, Joe, for this masterclass in context and it's really getting this thing figured out. So listen, I know you folks say, hey, your episodes are, you guys say, hey, your episodes are 20 minutes too long. We don't like it. We don't have time. Okay. We started a newsletter above the crowd. We get that. We'll get this. We will shave this 25 minutes down into 2-3 minutes for you. So we got you. Don't worry. We listen. So check us out. Above the crowd newsletter. You can, the information will probably be in the episode description. But we definitely want to make sure that we know you're busy. Time is precious. Attention economy is coming at you. So we got you 3 minutes in and out every week in your inbox. Check it out. Subscribe. Thanks for listening as usual. Thank you for your support. Take care. Be safe.
Later.
Yapstone.